Tragedy on Victory Peak. Rescue efforts abandoned for Russian climber stranded 22,000 feet on Victory Peak after 10 days. Rescue operations to save a Russian woman mountaineer stranded for 10 days at nearly 23,000 feet on Victory Peak in Kyrgyzstan have been called off due to worsening weather conditions and mounting fatalities, with officials now fearing she has not survived. Now, let's unpack the layers of this story in our deep dive on the AI podcast.
Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today we're getting into a story that's really hit the mountaineering world hard. It's about Natalia Nagovitsina, the rescue mission on Victory Peak. Truly harrowing stuff. And it brings up some really big questions about human limits, loyalty, and why people are drawn to these incredibly dangerous places. We're going to unpack the facts, but also dig into a personal history here that's just, it adds a whole other layer. It makes her story incredibly moving.
It really does. It's one of those situations that just forces you to look at the absolute edge of what humans can endure and the brutal reality of those high altitude environments. This isn't just, one climber story. It touches on the human spirit, the tough calls in mountain rescues, and the devastating price of passion sometimes.
Exactly. Okay, so let's set the scene for you. We're talking about Natasha Nagovitsina. She was 47. She got stranded way up high on Victory Peak in Kyrgyzstan. And this mountain is huge, 24,406 feet. But the critical part, she was stuck at nearly 23,000 feet, about 22,965 feet specifically, for 10 days with broken legs.
Just staggering numbers.
Right. And the conditions, think temperatures down to minus 23 Celsius, which is what, minus 9 Fahrenheit. And the oxygen levels are dangerously thin up there. What's almost unbelievable, though, is that drone footage just days before they called off the rescue showed her still moving. Mm-hmm. What does that even tell us about what someone can push through physiologically, mentally, in conditions like that?
Yeah, that drone footage, it's key. It speaks to this almost unimaginable will to live. But you have to understand, nearly 23,000 feet. You're deep in the death zone. That's not just a dramatic name. Your body literally cannot acclimatize there. It starts to shut down. It's not instant, but it's a steady decline. The minus 23 degrees. That means immediate risk of severe hyperthermia, frostbite. But the real enemy is the lack of oxygen. It starves everything, your organs, your brain. Every breath is exhausting. Every tiny movement uses energy you just don't have. So for her to be moving after 10 days, injured, it shows incredible spirit, definitely. But it also tells you her body was in a state of rapid deterioration. Eduard Kubatov, who heads the Kyrgyz Mountaineering Federation, he put it very starkly. He said at 7,000 meters, after 9 days, the body basically dies by about 10% each day.
Wow.
That's the grim science she was up against.
Just being stranded is terrifying.
Right.
But think about her partner at the start. He stayed with her at first, tried to help. Then he had to make that just gut-wrenching decision to go down for help. How common is that? Having to leave someone, knowing you're their only chance? What are the sort of unwritten rules there?
It's one of the heaviest ethical weights in climbing, honestly. Often, descending quickly for help is the only chance the injured person has. It feels counterintuitive, leaving them. But staying might just mean 2 people die instead of 1. There's no rule book for it. It's born out of pure necessity, an incredible amount of trust. And just this desperate hope you can make it down and back up fast enough, the person going down, they're carrying the weight in both lives, literally and figuratively.
And while that rescue was being organized, another climber stepped up, an Italian climber, Natalia, 49. His actions were just astonishing. He actually managed to reach Natalia, climbed up there, brought her a tent, sleeping bag, food, water, a gas cooker, vital supplies.
Can you maybe paint a picture of what that effort actually involves at nearly 23,000 feet?
Nataalia's climb, it's beyond heroic. It's pure self-sacrifice. Climbing to that altitude is incredibly hard, even when you're just focused on yourself. But doing it carrying a heavy load like that, knowing you're pushing your own body past its limits, it's almost incomprehensible. He fought his way up there to give her a fighting chance.
No. But it highlights that tragic dilemma in high-altitude rescue. This incredibly selfless act to save someone else can push the rescuer over the edge themselves. And sadly, that's what happened. Luka couldn't get Natalia down. And later, he himself succumbed to hypothermia and oxygen deprivation up there.
Oh, no.
Yeah. His death was felt deeply in the community. A hero, absolutely, but also a stark reminder of the risks rescuers face.
So even with immense human courage, the mountain itself, the conditions, they often have the last word. There were air rescue attempts too, right? I read that one helicopter, a Mi-8 from Kyrgyzstan's military, actually crashed during one attempt.
That's right.
A military helicopter crashing.
Yeah.
It just hammers home how ferocious those conditions must have been.
Absolutely. And then another helicopter in My-17 also had to turn back. Zero visibility.
So is there a point where rescue teams just have to say, the mountains won this round? That it's just too dangerous to continue?
Yes, definitely. And making that call is incredibly difficult, often heartbreaking. We're not just talking about bad weather up there. It can be sudden whiteouts, hurricane-force winds, blinding snow, conditions that appear out of nowhere. When a capable high-altitude helicopter like an HEM-8 goes down, it tells you everything about the danger level.
Right.
It means even the best tech and pilots are neutralized. Zero visibility. You can't see the terrain, you can't land safely, you risk the crew. So, yes, there's a threshold where the mission shifts from rescue to, well, potentially suicidal. Leaders have to make that awful call to prevent more loss of life. The mountain sets the terms.
Okay, so the air attempts failed. Then a final ground team tried, led by a veteran, Vitaly Akimov. But they also had to turn back. They were still about 600 feet below her. The reasons.
Yeah.
Worsening weather again, plus injuries some team members had from that helicopter crash earlier. Because it's like this cascade of problems just grinding them down.
That's exactly what it sounds like. It signifies that basically the mountain had thrown up too many barriers. You had the persistent extreme weather, the physical toll on the climbers, and the added complication of those injuries. It created a situation where continuing wasn't just hard, it was untenable.
Yeah.
Retreating, however agonizing, becomes the responsible choice to protect the remaining rescuers. At that point, air and ground options were exhausted. The conditions just slammed the door shut. Dmitry Grekov, the leader at base camp, he essentially said it was unrealistic to think she could have survived since August 12th. And with more storms coming, the Ministry of Emergency Situations officially called it off. A definitive, tragic end to the active search.
But Natalia's story, there's this other layer. It's incredibly poignant. It turns out this wasn't her first time facing immense tragedy in these mountains. It reveals so much about her resilience, her loyalty. We need to go back a few years to 2021. On Contengri Peak, which is nearby in the same range.
Yes, this part of the story, it adds such a profound depth. It's almost hard to believe. In 2021, her husband, Sergei Nagovitsin, he suffered a stroke. Also at extreme altitude, around 22,600 feet on Contengri. Understanding this gives you real insight into Natalia's character.
And get this, rescuers told her to descend alone for her own safety. It was the logical thing to do, but she refused. Absolutely refused to leave him. Her words were apparently, I understand everything, but I will not leave him alone.
Powerful words.
Just incredible loyalty, right?
Yeah.
Facing that kind of danger herself. What does that tell us about the bonds formed up there? And about who she was?
That refusal, those specific words, it's an extraordinary statement of love and commitment. It shows a loyalty that goes beyond self-preservation, something deeply ingrained. I think in these extreme places where life is so fragile, maybe human connections become even stronger, even more absolute. Her choosing to stay, knowing the risk, it says everything about her priorities. Love, loyalty, partnership. And the outcome then was also tragic. Rescuers tried to move Sergei, but the conditions were just too much. They had to leave him, secured him with ropes and supplies, planning to return. But when they did get back, he was gone. They believe he probably fell, perhaps in a state of delirium from the stroke in altitude.
Oh, that's heartbreaking. And then adding another layer to it all. A year later, Natalia went back to Contengri, not to climb it again for herself, but just to place a memorial plaque for Sergei.
Yeah, a quiet act, but it speaks volumes about her grief, her memory, her enduring connection to him. And it creates this devastating parallel, doesn't it? Both Natalia and Sergei lost in the same unforgiving mountain range, just 4 years apart. That grim assessment from the rescue leader, Grekov, it is unrealistic to survive at such an altitude. Too much time has passed. It echoes across both their stories.
Oh, he does.
It suggests this profound, maybe even fated connection they both had to these peaks, one that ultimately claimed them both.
So Natalia Nagovitsina, she'll be remembered in the climbing world, not just for being a climber, but for this incredible courage, this resilience, and, this extraordinary self-sacrifice and loyalty. She really showed what love means, even in the most brutal places imaginable. Her story is just, it's a testament to the human spirit, isn't it? Even when facing impossible odds and repeated heartbreak.
Absolutely. Her legacy is complex, but it's undeniably powerful. It reminds us of the depth of human connection possible in extreme situations, and it speaks to those deep personal drives that push people to test their limits, even knowing the potential cost.
Which leaves us with this really challenging thought to end on. When you know Natalia's history, that previous loss with her husband, what do you think keeps drawing someone back to that same extreme environment? What does her whole story tell us about our capacity for love, for loyalty, for pursuing our passions, even when faced with overwhelming risk and, well, devastating loss? Makes you reflect. Personally, what would you risk everything for? What defines you to that degree?
It's a profound question. It forces us to look at that complex dance between passion, risk, and consequence. For some people, maybe the mountains aren't just a place to climb. Maybe they're fundamental to who they are, despite the risks. Or perhaps in some way because of them.
Something to definitely think about. Well, thank you for joining us for this deep dive. We hope you walk away not just with a story, but maybe with a different perspective on the incredible things humans are capable of, for better or worse. And perhaps a moment to think about your own deepest commitments.
Okay, one question for you. Do you think rescuers should risk their own lives in extreme weather conditions to save stranded climbers, even when survival chances are low? Don't forget to comment it. Thanks.